The next person is my father, who I love. Love my father. When I was young, my father was not only my role model, but he was all there was. I mean, I always thought that he was the perfect father and the perfect everything, and I wanted to grow up to be just like him. And he's far from the perfect father or the perfect husband, but he's a good man. There's a lot of tenderness and love inside of him. He's confused sometimes. He gets angry and bitter at the world, at religion, at life. And that bitterness is so ground in now that I don't see him really breaking free from it. It's like the pain in the world just kind of binds him up. And spiritually, he seems confused sometimes, kind of lost. But there's always something about my father that is almost magical. And I can't explain what it is. It might have something to do with his childhood, something from his childhood. There's some kind of connection between the way God works in me and the way God worked in my father. And I really wish I could explain what I'm talking about, but unfortunately, I can't, except to say that God was with my father most of all of his life. But now even more so, God is with me. The next is the last, which is the only important. I have other aunts and uncles that I love. But that's my grandmother, who's the only stable and nice thing in my family. My grandfather's passed away, but actually he was pretty great too. He was a character. He used to walk and talk, and he would hold me, and I care about him a lot. My grandmother is like me. My grandmother was born in the same month I was. She likes the same foods I do. If she was born at the same time I was, she'd probably be very much like me. We have similar characters. She's very balanced. I'm not saying I'm balanced necessarily. I've been kind of unbalanced most of my life, but she has a certain balance and understanding and peacefulness to her. And she's not your typical grandma. We always made a joke every year that she wanted a sports car. I don't think she really meant it, but it's just the idea, I guess, was kind of fun. Who died on the Titanic. He was a reporter. I know this sounds pretty unbelievable, but it's the truth. He was a reporter, and he was a stowaway on the USS Titanic, and when it sunk, he went down with it, because they weren't letting reporters on the maiden voyage, so he stowed away to get the story, to get the scoop, and he died. And the King family, which was very notable in Hayward, that was another great-grandfather of mine. He used to raise doves and pigeons and different things like that. Had thousands of them up in the Hayward Hills, and kind of a fun stories. There's a lot of fun stories. I used to love playing at my grandmother's house. There used to be thousands, well, maybe not thousands, but about a couple hundred pigeon coops, and we used to run through them and play hide and seek in them, and it was great. And then my grandfather and my father's side, we used to play in the grapevines. I mean the vineyard, and that was fun too. And I always remember my grandfather, my father's side, always had this little box that you put the coin down, this little claw went on, and we just loved that thing because it grabbed the coin and just slapped it back into the box, and it was really joyful. My family today is very distant, very independent individual. Each character different. Kim is still base. She's kind of crude sometimes in her talk, her manner, speech. Chris is very. He's so straightforward. He's so clean-cut, all-American sometimes, and his goals and his priorities are so set in stone that he has very little flexibility. Everything to him is like one big game, and he has to win the game, so he has to go through all the right steps. Ken is 1 minute your friend, 1 minute he's shaking your hand, and the next minute he's shaking your throat, and you can't. He's unpredictable, and I can't. I don't know what to say about him. I'm worried about his future. And Karen will do okay. She's maturing. She's overcoming some trauma that she's had in her life. And as long as she works and continues keeping her independence, because she needs to be her own boss, because she's too much of a pain in the neck not to be. My father's finally, I think, going to move out. He's been planning this for a long time. And I think basically he's afraid in the end now. But when all is said and done, I think he's going to be much happier not having the stress, the extra stress of extra money being spent. I think he'll have a little bit of extra money this time. And maybe a girlfriend. He needs a girlfriend desperately. My mother's been gone a long time now, and he seems lonely. He really needs a woman with some passion and some intimacy. And my grandmother, I don't know what to say about my grandmother. Sometimes I love my grandmother so much that I'm afraid to be around her, because I don't know, it's just a natural fear that she's not going to be with us forever. I guess it's kind of dumb to talk about a person as if they're dead when they're still well and alive. My grandmother is definitely well and alive and active. He's the president of her group, and she's like my great-grandmother on my mother's side. My grandmother's mother was energetic all the way up to about 93. I mean, she would go around the gardening and do gardening work, and she was incredible. My great-grandmother was just incredible. Kind of a funny story is once when my grandmother was young, back then when my grandmother was young, you don't talk about sex until you're married, I mean, really, you don't talk about it. And then only the man gets to know about it, and then he tells the woman, kind of thing. And so, this boy, she invited a boy over, which she'd never done. And that was okay to invite him over, no big deal. But he grabbed her. He was just playing around, and he grabbed her around the waist. And my grandmother screamed, ran into the room. The young friend that she invited over didn't know what was going on. But apparently she thought that she'd gotten pregnant just by being grabbed. I strike one up for maybe sex education in the schools early on, because that's kind of on the naive level maybe, but maybe there's too much sex already in the movies and everything, so. My views on conservativeness seem to fluctuate. On the one hand, I don't think anything violent or